Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for watching the replay. I'm thrilled to see you today. What I want to really talk about is guilt. It's not something that I've experienced very much in quite some time, and sometimes I forget how much it impacts other people. However, I was reminded of it recently. So I wanted to talk today about guilt, how it shows up in our fingerprints, and what the impact is on our life purpose. But before I get to that, one thing I'd like to suggest is that possibly you go and get some kind of way of looking at your fingerprints. Whether you have a magnifying glass or a very strong pair of glasses and a light, just go, while I quickly share this video, just go and find a couple of things that you could use to actually look a little bit more closely at your own fingerprints, so we can look and see if guilt is showing up in your fingerprints or not. But whether that shows up in your fingerprints or not, I've still got lots of good stuff to share around guilt. Okay, I'm going to, in the meantime, just quickly share this video in a couple of places while you go get yourselves organized. Quickly. Oh, and I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll give you a nice view while you're doing that of my flowers. See. I'm so excited about my irises. Look at those. Can you see those irises showing through the bleeding heart? I absolutely love those. And I'm just going to quickly share now. I'm so excited about my irises because I didn't think they were going to grow through that bleeding heart, because the bleeding heart is actually sort of almost obscuring them. And I'm struggling to share because my other thing is not working. So if you can share for me, that'll be brilliant, because I can't share it apparently. I'm going to have a quick look here at my thing. We're looking at guilt and how it shows up in your fingerprints and how it's relevant to your life purpose, right? And I don't know if you've had a look at any of my videos before. You might have done, where I've talked about the different types of fingerprints. But here are the four fundamental types, right? We've got this, which is kind of like a whirl, right? Looks like a whirlpool. Sometimes it looks like a bullet, like a target. This one is a loop, or can look a little bit like a wave. Sometimes it can curl more over like that. That's what we call a loop. This one is very similar to a loop, but it has kind of like a tent pole that's like almost a direct, straight tent pole that sits up in the middle, and then kind of has these waves that go over the top of it. But it is different to the loop. The loop is much more common. This is what we call a tented arch, okay? And this one is what we call an arch, which is kind of more like, a bunch of things just stuck on top of one another. So in order to determine whether you have an issue with guilt in your fingerprints, the first thing we have to look at is, if you look at all 10 of your fingerprints and figure out which is the most advanced of your fingerprints. So this would be the most advanced. If you have any of these, then they are the highest, if you want, in terms of advancement, highest in terms of complexity in your fingerprints, right? And the ones over here, these are the lowest. Hi, Sonia. We're looking at your fingerprints, and we're looking at all 10 of them. And we're looking to see, okay, if you can say which fingers have the least advanced fingerprints on them and which ones have the most advanced. Now, you may not have any of these whirly things. You may have kind of like 10 of these loopy things on your fingers, right? But if you look at them, you might find some is kind of a very small loop or something like that, and others have got really full loops with lots of lines around them. Just use your intuition about which one looks as if it's the least complex, and which ones look as if they're looking for the most complex, right? So we've got this is the order they go in. This whirly one, or versions of this whirly one, which will be lots of different versions, by the way. Sometimes you can have a whirly one in the middle of a loop, that kind of thing. Or just regular loops, which look like waves, is the next one. The next one is the one with the tent in the middle that kind of has these lines that go over the top of it. And sometimes you have this tent bit, and then you have a bit of a loop off to the side of it. That's also one thing. But the tent sort of kind of reduces its value, so if you know what I mean. It makes it less complex than this one if it was just a pure loop on its own without the tent. And then the least complex is this one. So if you are looking at your fingerprints, try and figure out, and if you want to, put it down, even if you're watching on the replay, just check in with me and let me know where, which fingers of yours, like left hand, right hand, middle finger, left thumb, whatever it is, just let me know which one is your least complex fingerprint and which one is your most complex fingerprint, okay? In the meantime, I have been struggling to share to my personal page my video. So if, or to anywhere else, because my computer for some reason is not working properly. So if you have a chance to share this video for me so other people can join in, I would be really, really grateful. Right, so back to this. Now, and I'm going to have to get, let me look at my face. Shall we look at my face again now? 1 second. Okay. Right, so I might have a bit of a halo behind me because I've got that bit of light, but you know what? That's not such a bad thing, I presume. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Helen Elizabeth Evans, and if you're watching the replay, thank you very much. Stick with me. I have lots of amazing stuff to share with you today. We're talking very much about guilt, and I think that, you know, guilt is not something that I have experienced a lot of for a few years now. I mean, thank you probably to Fingerprints in many ways. It's not just about Fingerprints. It's also about, you know, one's sense of self. But I wanted to use the Fingerprints as a way of showing you how it relates to your life purpose and how it can show up in your fingerprints and how it's completely relevant to what's going on in your fingerprints. But so if you know which is your least advanced fingerprints and your most advanced fingerprints, you had a chance to look at that and you're willing to share it with me, please do, so that I can comment and I can add extra value to you. But in the meantime, I'm going to, let me think, which way do I want to go with this? Okay, let's just lead from the fingerprints and life purpose perspective. We'll just start with that, okay? And thank you very much for the heart, Sonia. You're such a delight, honey. So glad you got home in time to come and join me live today. Right, back to my flip chart, right? I'll be back in a second, hold on. Right, okay, here we are. Now I'm holding this. I'm going to have to actually do something different here. Hold on. I didn't prepare as well as I usually do, so just forgive me for a minute while I find a clean sheet. Or actually, what I can do, let me know if you can't see me properly. You should be able to, right? I'm going to do the left and right hand. So I'm over on the side, and here we have, right, my left hand. So I want you to think about which fingers are relevant to you, which is the most advanced and which is the least advanced. And how can I do my right hand now? I could do one of my silly drawings of hands, couldn't I, which people laugh at, instead of doing around my own hands. But anyway, this is a good start. Right, got that one, right? So what we're really interested in is what's happening on these two fingers here. This is your right hand and this is your left hand. Now when guilt shows up in your fingerprints, it'll show up on your left hand and this finger. Now the interesting thing about this finger, right, it represents value. So let me show you right here, okay? So our middle finger is almost like the center of our palm, and it represents value in many ways. And it's kind of interesting that there's a life lesson. Right, it's interesting that there's a life... Oh, hi, Sylvia. Thank you very much for being here. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at your own fingerprints and actually see which is the most advanced and which is the least advanced. By the way, if you're watching and you haven't said hi, please do. You know, I'm more likely to be inspired and excited and share more stuff with you the more people I know are on and have said hello. Anyway, we're talking about guilt in your fingers. And I did talk about the fact that if you have your least advanced fingerprint on your left hand and this particular finger, this finger, you know, on both hands represents our value, but don't, you know, also look at the hand. It's very much the structure of the hand. It's almost like the center of the hand. And so the center and the structure within us is also about what are our values, you know, and what value do we bring to the world. And the guilt that we feel is a representation. Hello, Heather. Nice to see you. Let me know, by the way, about the fingerprints. If you get a chance to have a look at them, which ones are least evolved and which ones are most evolved. I'll definitely be sharing more, and I'll help you with that if you bring them in. So anyway, going back to fingers right, the guilt. So when it shows up in your fingerprints, what that often means is that some people will call this particular life lesson one around self-worth. It will be, you know, I have self-worth issues, but actually it's not really self-worth, it's guilt, right? There's a lot of, how does guilt show up? It's because we are trying to live by somebody else's values. Oh, you've got the right one. Okay, you need to be clearer, Sylvia, for me, like which hand, And do you mean it's the most advanced or least advanced fingerprint, and which finger? And you're saying right one, which must mean, she said, I have a whirl on my left hand finger that you mentioned. Okay, is that your most advanced one, Sonia? Because that's actually very key, that's relevant too, because sometimes our most advanced one on that finger can represent that we are here to be a coach, a teacher, or a mentor. But actually we can often experience the opposite of our life purpose. She says the right one is more advanced. The one on this finger, so the right hand middle finger, is the most advanced. I think is what you're saying, Sylvia. And that, interesting enough, is another self-worth finger, but it's self-worth publicly as opposed to privately. So I'll explain that a little bit more as we go. I think I'm going to have to get a little bit more complex to explain this to make sense to you all. Sylvia's going, yes, okay, so hers is more advanced. And Sonia, interesting enough, is more advanced on the left hand. And Heather is saying it's, I'm going to have to get my glasses out to see what it says. Most aligned is the left middle, H. Did you not finish typing? Your left middle one is the most lined. What do you mean by most lined? Does that mean kind of like, Heather, do you have, this type of lines on your fingers? Or do you mean in terms of your actual fingerprints themselves? Sonia says, what do you mean by most advanced? Okay, so so imagine that your fingerprints are completely blank, right? There's like nothing on them. And then something comes along and stirs things up and makes them more exciting. And the most stirred up, the most complex are the ones that go from 0 to an absolute bullseye, lots of little circles, right? It looks like a target practice thing. That is the most complex fingerprint you can get, the one that is perfect little circles around one another. Now you get versions of that. You get ones that look like whirlpools. You get ones with messy kind of centers, but otherwise kind of have circles around them. Those are all heading towards the most advanced. And the least advanced fingerprints are like a bunch of lines which just do that. Now, Heather, you were talking about most lined. Do you mean like straight lines just going across like that? Plain, flat ones, horizontally? That is what we call an arch. So I'm going to go back to my little picture just to kind of remind you about most complex and least complex. Trust your intuition, trust your inner guidance as to which one feels to you like more energy went into creating it, and which one looks as if it looks like I left some energy behind and I didn't kind of get that, okay? So let's have a look again just quickly at the fingerprints so that you can get this clarity. All right, here we go. Most advanced are the circular ones. Then we go down to the loops. They still kind of, they haven't quite have managed to turn into a circle yet, but they're kind of getting loopy and interesting, and they might have little things like that. Then we go through to the tented arches, which look a bit like loops or might have loops off to the side of them, but they've always got a straight tent pole in the middle. And then the least advanced are what we call the plain arches, which are the ones that look like that. So is this what you're looking for? Is this have I made myself clear enough? Are you struggling to figure out which is which with your fingerprints? Just let me know, and I'll see if I can explain a little bit better. Right, back to me again. Okay, so, right, back to guilt in your fingerprints and this particular finger. So the way that guilt shows up often for us, and I'm sure you know that this is true, is that there's a lack of clarity because you actually think, I should do this. I should do that. And when you don't do it, you feel bad, you feel guilty, and you think, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And feel free to share your wisdom around this and how guilt shows up for you and the kind of stuff that goes on in your head that leads to you feeling guilty. And thinking, oh, didn't do the right thing, or I'm not enough, or, whatever it is. You have a lot of stuff that you say in your head, which ultimately leads to a sense of guilt in some way. Now, those of you who've been sharing so far don't sound like you have guilt in your fingerprints, but you may still experience it, especially for you, Sylvia and Sonia, because you've mentioned that you have quite advanced fingerprints on the 2 middle fingers, right? Don't you love this? The sign read between the lines. Remember, it's I don't value you, which is this finger represents value, okay? So, I always think that that's hilarious that we intuitively sort of seem to know what our fingers mean. In terms of the funny hand signals that we pass on. Right. Sonia says, it's hard to see as my fingerprints look like spaghetti junction with so many other lines on each fingerprint. And Sylvia says, I used to, but it's worked on this and I'm much better. Fantastic, Sylvia. So Sonia, the reason why that is actually, you've got all of those lines. What matters is whether they are vertical lines, those extra lines on top, or whether they're horizontal lines. That's absolutely key, right? Because we actually want energy to flow out of our fingers, want to flow upwards. So that's very important, and having lines going that way is really good. When the lines are horizontal, it's indicative of you having limiting beliefs that often stop you moving forward. So I have an intention of taking action on something that actually is going to be providing value or making efforts towards my values or whatever the case may be. But actually I have a lot of thoughts in my head that cut me off and stop me fulfilling that action that I feel drawn to do. And so when we have horizontal ones, those are persistent thought processes that are blocking you from actually doing whatever it is that you need to do, or listening to your inner knowing and following through on it. So Sonia, what's the difference? Do you have the vertical lines or do you have the horizontal? Horizontal, vertical lines. Let me know. Sylvia, when you talked about working on it, one of the things Sylvia says, is this on the top of my fingers? Absolutely. Yeah, the top sections, these little pads here at the top and your thumbs. That's what matters. The ones here are important if you have a lot of ones kind of going vertical like that, but that's something different. It's a gift marker. So, sidetrack there for a minute. Guilt. It's the shoulds. We basically have a lot of patterns in our thinking around I should do this and I should do that. Now, I don't believe in shoulds. I believe that you need to look at each should that shows up in your head and kind of go, do I believe that this is something that I think I personally should do? In which case you believe in it and you value it and you think it's important. You need to change it in your head to an I want. I want to do this. Not I should do it, but I want to do it. So therefore it's more empowering and you're less likely to think to yourself like, oh my God, I should have done that and I didn't do it, and then you feel bad. Whereas if you say, I wanted to do that and then I chose not to do it, that's much more empowering, right? It's because you chose not to do it. It's okay. So it's very important. The people who have this life lesson in their hands, often their default behavior is that other people have given them a pattern or a conditioning or the way things should be. And there's a lack of clarity around who they are and what matters to them and what their integrity is, if you want, in a way. Because the opposite side of a person with challenges around guilt and shoulds, etc., is the person who is very clear on who they are, what matters to them, and they live completely in integrity. Think about what a mentor is, right? A mentor, which is actually what that finger represents, is a person who's very clear about who they are, what matters to them, and they live in integrity. They honor. Honor is a very important word. They honor themselves, they honor their commitments, and hence therein lies the self-worth aspect. Because I want you to think of self-worth as almost like a jar that is filled up, right? And every time you honor a commitment, so in other words, you keep a promise that you've made to somebody else or to yourself, you fill up your self-worth jar. Whereas actually every time you don't honor a promise or you don't fulfill a commitment, you take something out of your self-worth jar and you lower your self-worth. Hence why the guilt aspect often shows up as a self-worth issue. Because when you are guilty, then it's like, I have these commitments in my head that are the shoulds, like I should be living this way, and I'm not honoring what I think I should be doing, so therefore my self-worth goes down. It's just a misunderstanding in your head that you need to take the time to clarify and get really clear on what are genuinely your beliefs and change them into I wants. And I think in many ways, Sylvia, it's probably the kind of work that you've actually done when you say you worked on your guilt issues and you're much better now. The thing is, when you have the life purpose on your right hand, which is what Sylvia was talking about, that's the businesswoman. And there's a gift that you have automatically there to often be quite organized, and you are like what is it? In the E-Myth, they talk about the three things that we need in a business. We need the doer, we need the entrepreneur, the visionary, right? And then we need the manager, the person who kind of manages things and makes things happen, the systems-orientated person. So I can imagine, Sylvia, if that is true for your fingerprints, and I'm, without having looked at them, I don't know, if that is the most advanced of your fingerprints, you have a gift around systems and actually putting systems into place. And almost like you can't teach somebody else how to do it. It's almost innate. It just comes to you. However, if you're not actually working on your life lesson, whatever that is, you can experience the opposite of that, in which case you will struggle often to be on time, you won't get paid enough, you will, give your time away, basically spend too long giving things away for free or spend too long with clients, etc. That's a sign that you're not engaging with whatever your life lesson is. And often we can experience as well, when we have a life purpose, we can experience the other finger, the opposite matching fingers issues too. And so hence you might have experienced issues around guilt and self-worth as well. But those are signs usually that you're not actually not engaging with your life lesson. It's nothing to do with issues around self-worth. Does that make sense to you? Hopefully that's helpful. And Sylvia's going, yes, I'm organized. So you may have read your fingerprints correctly then. However, you may be organized, but because it comes so naturally to you, it's not necessarily something that you may be good at teaching other people. So let me go back to the questions in a minute here. Sylvia says the lines on her hands are more horizontal. Those are beliefs, okay, Sylvia, that I said earlier, that you've got some innate, ingrained beliefs that are stopping you moving forward. Sonia says hers are mostly vertical, but there are a few that are horizontal, which I've decided now I will dissolve. Excellent. Yes. You're getting the message here. So you can find out what are these beliefs that the moment I have an idea to do something, for both Sylvia and Sonia, what are the beliefs that are actually kicking in and making you think, oh, no, actually, maybe I won't do that after all. Just let me know. Well, you don't have to let me know because you probably want to do some work around those. But those, that's what that bit is about. Now, going back to the self-worth finger, which I think we talked, so the life purpose side, I think Sonia said you had this one on your left hand was most advanced. That is the finger that represents from a life purpose is the mentor, the guide, the coach. Not coach in a traditional sort of way where we kind of just ask questions and then we, and the other person comes up with the answers. It's not that kind of coach, all right? Because that kind of coach in many ways is a facilitator who helps people bring up their own stuff. But a person who is a mentor or a guide is a person who actually has an integrity and actually expresses that integrity and that belief system within which they teach. Their belief system may be that you are powerful, and so therefore I will, do the kind of coaching that I talked about to bring out your own power, in which case that's, absolutely appropriate for that. But I'm just trying to differentiate slightly between pure coaching from a person who may be very good at it but lacks integrity in terms of how they show up in their personal life, versus a person who has integrity in terms of how they show up and how they behave. And how they value themselves and how they value other people. The key thing is, Sonia, for you, if this is your life purpose, you will naturally be quite honorable in everything that you do. However, if you are struggling with guilt and self-worth and issues like that are showing up for you, a lot of shoulds, etc., it's indicative of the fact that you have a life lesson that you are not engaging with. So it's not that part that you need to fix. The opposite of your life purpose is never something you need to fix. What you need to work on is your actual life lesson. Sonia is saying, in all seriousness, if someone has worked on their beliefs and feels this is dissolved, have you found the lines change and disappear, or are they like onion layers? Oh, absolutely. I think that definitely people, the thing is, it depends how ingrained they are. If they're very, very ingrained, then there's no, then it'll take longer for them to fade. Because, there is a physical manifestation of it, and it means that you have serious highways that you've developed in your brain that you're going to be constantly having to focus over and over again on letting go and creating new pathways and new ways of thinking. Because ultimately, that's all the lines in your hands are, is representations of the neural pathways that you've created. So, have you found this valuable? I think there's one part of what I wanted to do that I haven't really talked about. And that is, hold on a second. So by the way, if you have found this useful, and I do have a bit more to share with you in a minute, but if you found this useful and you're willing to share it, I would be very grateful. If you would like to have a conversation with me, just to talk about what's in your fingerprints and whether this can be actually helpful to you, I've put a link in the title of this video. I'd love you to just book in a call with me. There's absolutely no obligation. It's just a relaxed chat about what's involved. So please do that. The other thing I would love you to do is, if you've enjoyed this live and you want to be notified in future about when I do other lives, I think somewhere on the screen, it's different for everybody depending where you're watching it from, there will be the option to subscribe to my live videos so that you know when I go and you get a notification. The only place that I've seen it for myself is top right hand corner. There are 3 little dots you can click on, and then it gives you an option to subscribe to these live videos. But sometimes there's a button right in your face there that you can click to subscribe. So I would love you to, if you found them useful. If you haven't liked my hands-on business page, I would love you to do that too. Anyway, I'm getting back to finishing. I just wanted to share these things because I'm telling you honestly right now, I will forget later on. Let's just see before I finish here. Sylvia says, could you show us the drawing of the different shapes, please? Sonia says, already shared. Thank you so much. Sonia's saying, very helpful and insightful. Okay, good. I've got a bit more to share about it. Okay, back to the drawings for anybody who's just joined us right now. Give me a second of the most advanced and the least advanced. Okay, here we are, back to my drawings. Okay, the most advanced, here we go, are the whorls. They could be perfect little bullets, or they can be, swirly bits like this, or they can have messy middles with circles around them. But fundamentally, they need to be closed circles of some sort. The ones that are closest to looking like a target are the most advanced. So let me find a pen. Hold on a second. Sorry, it's wobbling. So the most advanced would be like a perfect little circle like that, all right? Other ways they might have a messy kind of center, and then they might have circles around them like that too. But the most advanced are the ones with the perfect little bullseye type things. Okay, then you get the whirly bits, then you get, etc. and so on. Then this is the loops. The loops can also do weird stuff like this. They can kind of go more like a crashing wave too. You can also get peacocks, which kind of have this sort of thing, but otherwise look like a loop. Those go in between. So this is the most advanced. Then you get your peacocks. Then you get your loops, right? And then we have sort of a loop that might go on the side of a tent like that, and then things do that afterwards. That might be 4. 5 might be this one. Oh, God, I haven't been showing you. Sorry about the video. I'm not watching the video. 5 might be, so that's the one with the loops at the sides, with the tent here, right? And then the loops over the top. Here's number 5, which would be like you've got a perfect tent here, and then you get these loops that kind of go over the top, but they don't look as much like a loop. Yours on number 3 there, you're saying, Sylvia. Okay, so, well, School of Love. There we go. If you need to have at least 8 of them though, like that in order to be in School of Love. Okay, and then this one here, these are the arches. Now, I have one which is kind of a real weirdo, so let's put that over 6. Here's my slightly weird one. It has a very tiny arch like that, and then has loads of almost like plain arches over the top. So that's in between these two. But if it's like this, I would say number 7, say. I mean, these are not official numbers, by the way. This is just for the sake of the video that I've put this up, okay? Just to give you a sense. I'm just going to start at the beginning again, just so you see the circular ones. Those are the most advanced. Now, with this number 3, you said yours are like this, Sylvia, but you'll have a sense of the most complex version of these, the ones that are fullest, seem to have more energy, seems to have gone into creating them, versus the ones that kind of a bit simpler. I think the more they curl over, the more advanced they are, the more straight up they are, the less advanced they are. So it gives you a kind of sense of how they might look. Okay, has that been helpful? Right, I'm going to come back now to talking about that last little bit, which is basically the impact of guilt on your life purpose. One thing a lot of people don't recognize, we spend time thinking, oh, I have to sort myself out. Sylvia's going, yes. Okay, this is about the more complex fingerprints, I think. So some people have, okay, getting sidetracked here for a minute. Back to thinking, Helen. We think often we have to fix things, when things aren't going quite right. So we might think, oh God, I'm powerless, I can't move forward, I'm stuck, etc., etc. I'm really struggling with guilt or whatever it is. One thing I do want you to consider is that there's always a karmic element to the work that we do here on this earth as well, the reason why we're here. And sometimes it's karmic that we need to actually be stuck for a certain period of time in order to pay our dues, to clear some karma that we have from previous times. So one thing is, the reason why I'm mentioning this with this particular life lesson that we're talking about guilt, is because guilt is full of shoulds, right? I should be doing better. I should be moving forward with my life. I should be more effective. I would really like you to realize that sometimes there's no shoulds involved, and actually what you should do is just sit tight and just go with the flow. Listen to your inner knowing and stop trying to push, okay? Because sometimes you're just not going to move forward because you haven't paid your dues yet. However, I don't believe that should be a reason as a cop-out either. I think that when you feel really stuck around this stuff and you find this guilt kicking in and all these shoulds, etc., kicking in, I think it's a really good time to do some personal work on yourself, and start listening to your inner self, potentially meditating, or you may have some other process that you use to actually dig down deeper and find out what's going on for you. And how you might be able to let go of, because I do believe it's possible to let go of our karma sooner than we may have actually planned originally, just depending on how we respond to the stuckness, to the beliefs, etc. I think we choose how long we want to suffer, and I think it's possibly a soul item. And the more you become enlightened and you do work beyond perhaps what you were planning to do here, the quicker and the shorter you overcome your soul chooses to overcome your stuckness. This does not mean that because you're stuck that this must be a karmic thing. You don't really know. So to some extent you have to kind of do the work anyway with, what do I need to do to come unstuck? Sometimes it's just shifting your thinking that needs to happen. Other times it's you have to allow the universe to come and actually make space for you to do what you need to do. There are a lot of different reasons why, and please feel free to share what you believe to be true as well. And given the fact that you've stayed so long on this live stream, I would love you to share, as a thank you for sticking with me, what it is that you do and what page people could go to find out more about you, because anybody who's stuck with me this long definitely deserves some sharing about who you are and what the work is that you're here to do in the world. So feel free to start typing away like crazy. Okay, in terms of your life purpose and what guilt has, the impact that guilt has on your life purpose is that it can actually get you stuck. All right, it can get you to a point where where it just doesn't allow you to move forward. I think sometimes it can be a form of resistance from your subconscious. And it actually, we can live our life purposes. Actually, let me go back to this. I've shared this with you before, but I think that for anybody who's new here, who hasn't attended my live streams before, or might be watching on the replay, they might find this interesting. So the concept around your life purpose, okay? Let me see if I can find a blank page to scribble on. Oh my goodness, I've done so many lives. Look at all this writing. Excuse me on this. Let me see if I can put this on the table and just write. Okay. When we live our life purpose, this is my mountain idea, right? I want you to imagine your life purpose is like you are driving up a mountain if you want, okay? Let's just imagine you in your little car, right? This is obviously, as you can see, my drawing skills are really advanced. And anyways, we're going up. But the problem is you can't see anything. It's like you don't actually know where you're going. It just feels like there's trees everywhere. There's no view. You don't know what is going on, right? But on this mountain, as you go up it, there are these platforms along the way. And I believe that ultimately we stop here and we have a look at the panoramic view here and we do our thing. This is where you get to live your life purpose. Now, what happens is you get here, and when you first arrive, you're really excited and you're really thrilled about how you're doing. And then you start to get a bit antsy and a bit bored. And that's a sign that it's time to do the work. Because when you're here in the trees is when you're actually working on your life lesson. That's the bit where you're stuck and you're confused, etc. You have to kind of almost do this with a bit of faith. There needs to be a bit of faith involved when you do this, because it's really hard to actually see where you're going and what you're doing. And I'll talk about this in more detail on another video. But the reason why I wanted to share this with you here is that in actual fact, guilt can stop you doing the work that you need to do here in order to move to the next level. Guilt is almost like a wall that you might put up that says, okay, your car can't move any forward, and it stops you up leveling in your life. And we live our life purposes at different levels. It's still the same formula, but it's at a bigger, more profound level as we move on, a deeper level. They talk about in school these days with my daughter that the way that they mark now at school is bizarre in primary school. There's no numbers or percentages anymore. It's either working below the national average or working at the national average or working above the national average. And then there's another level which they call working at a deeper level above the national average, right? And so that's effectively what happens with your life purpose, is you take it to a deeper and deeper level as you move up the mountain. But you can't do that as long as you are experiencing guilt. And that's why I would love you to focus on, what do you feel guilty about? Guilt can be so useful to you. And I'm going to come back around to the front of the camera now. So let's see if anybody said anything that I have missed. Yeah, now, there we go. Okay, let's see. Oh, Monica's here. And I'm going to have to put my glasses on to see what you said. Oh, Sylvia says, I'm working with parents facing challenges, sylviameredith.com. Oh, yes. I would have needed you a few years ago. Wish you were around. Monica says, I'm an angel psychic medium and energy healer working with angelic realm, and this is my share. Thanks, Helen. Fantastic. Thanks, Monica. That's brilliant to bring that in. Sylvia says, great explanation. Right. Yeah, a few people who haven't shared what you do and what your page is. Guilt is a big thing for me. Okay, Monica, definitely listen. I don't know if you've actually watched from the beginning, but if you can watch the replay about it, I think if guilt is a big thing for you, definitely watch it. It's around the shoulds, and the shoulds come from conditioning that we've had from other people. And in my mind, when we live by what I should do, because that's where the guilt comes from, is we have ingrained like rules that we think other people have given us. It's like conditioning from school or whatever the case may be. Those things are the things that they like disempower us, which is why I think of guilt as a wall to us actually moving forward with our life purpose and working at a deeper level. So one of the things I would definitely work on is looking at, Monica, the shoulds in your head. That's the first thing I would invest any money in if you're going to do any coaching, or even if you do it on yourself. I mean, nobody says you have to necessarily go and work with somebody else. Is to work on actually what are all those shoulds that you have going on in your head. What is the conditioning? What are the beliefs that say that in order for me to be accepted and for me to be valued, I should do this and I should do that? My big question is, says who? And what? And I really believe one of my big beliefs is who decided what the rules were. Why are they more important than you? You are here as a soul who's absolutely and completely and utterly equal to any other soul next to you. You may have, we often say meet somebody who's quite well known in the world or has done something incredible, and we like sit in awe of them. And we're like, actually, but maybe it's their life purpose to do that. And maybe it's your life purpose not to do that and to not be that special in inverted commas, right? Because that's not what you're here for. You're here to work on yourself. So please never actually compare yourself to other people, because the journey that your soul has chosen for this lifetime is going to be very different compared with somebody else's. And so you should never, and there's a should kicking in there, right? Ever compare yourself to somebody else. You are on your own unique journey that your soul has chosen for you, and the only person you need to compare yourself with is yourself. And you need to sort of approach yourself with love, from my perspective. And Heather said something, but it's enough that I need to put my glasses on to read it. Heather says, I feel that I am my own worst enemy, and for some reason actually deliberately hold myself back. Okay, you and I, Heather, we should get together. We just join in, right? I call that resistance, right? So when we kind of have this purpose, right, that we can almost feel, and our subconscious, because remember I don't know if you've looked at my video on conscious and subconscious and higher conscious, etc., but our subconscious is our human side of ourselves. And it's the part that really, what's the word? It's the part that wants to hold us back and keep us safe. And then there's the higher conscious pulling us forward and saying, we've got this amazing stuff to do, let's go do it. And your subconscious going, ooh, no. Scary stuff. Let me make you feel really bad about this and make you feel like, no, I'll put anything in the way, and I'll try to discourage you, and I'll make you feel like you're not good enough, and I'll shovel in some guilt in there, and I'll do whatever I can to keep you stuck right where you are, and so that you don't really move forward. So definitely check out one of my other videos, around this stuff, because I think what you'll find is that there's a section that I talk about working with your bodyguard, which is your subconscious, and how that can actually really help you to move forward and to not stop yourself. And also, I talk very much, I don't know if I've shared this in a video, but maybe it's something for me to think about how you can actually overcome your resistance in a way through, achieving inspiration. But again, another thing for another video. If you found this valuable, please do share with your friends. Book in a call with me for a chat. Feel free to sign up for my emails at hands-on-business.com. You can book in a call with me at the link at the top of this video, in the title of this video. Love to have a chat just to connect with you, because connection is one of my highest values, and I like to talk to people, and I need feedback, and I need to know what people think, and it helps me create new products and do things differently. As you've been on here very long, if you haven't shared much about who you are, please do feel free to share about what you do and put your link in so other people can connect with you. Heather says, oh dear, that's it precisely. Well, definitely check in with me if you want to, Heather, book in a call with me. Otherwise, look out for a video that I might eventually do on resistance and how that shows up for you. Monica says, great reminder not to compare. And Sylvia says, great advice. Well, if there's any other questions, I'm about to finish up because otherwise this video will be way too long. And we'll see. And let me know what you want me to talk about next week. Really happy to... I do a theme each week on my page. So if there's a theme or something that you're really interested in for me to use for next week, let me know. Please feel free to put it in the comments below. And otherwise, anything else you want to share before I say goodbye? You know what I'll do, just while you're typing that, I've got to show you my irises again, okay? So, and I think that this is a really good analogy, because I was really worried. Okay, I have this plant, it's called a bleeding heart, and I'll show it to you. It has little pink flowers on it, and by the way, I'm a complete bleeding heart on so many different levels. And I was really worried because it was growing over my irises, and I really like the purple of my irises. And in a way, the purple represents almost like, spiritual stuff, doesn't it? And there's the pink hearts, etc. And I was thinking, oh, my irises are not going to grow. They're not going to be able to get to the sun because because there's this bleeding heart over, sort of taking things over. Look what's happened. They have grown. Hang on a second. Let me see. My irises, I don't know if you can tell that, but my irises have grown through the bleeding heart to be taller than they've ever been before. And look how stunningly beautiful they are. And so I'm really excited by that. And I think that nature can give us a wonderful analogy for life, for our life purpose, and about our businesses in many ways. That sometimes we can think something is taking over from something else, and as a result, something won't happen. But actually, it's all adaptable. Nature adapts to and look how, because, this bleeding heart was taking over, the spirit, in a way, the purple, said, okay, I'm just going to grow bigger and I'm going to grow taller so I can still be seen. So anyway, that's my finish up. Thank you so much for being with me. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to going and catching up on everybody else's videos. Oh, and for those of you who stayed long enough to know why I didn't show up on everybody's videos today, went shopping with my son. And my 15-year-old for the first time bought a suit. And of course, what did he buy? A boss suit. And I'm looking at my husband shaking my head and going, oh my God, are you serious? A 15-year-old in a boss suit. But anyways, come home so over the moon and so excited. It was worth it. It was worth it. It was so, just to see how delighted he is. So lovely to see you all. Thank you so much for being with me, and take care. Feel free to put comments in. Lots of love to you all. Bye.